What if the biggest airports in the world had no passengers? Imagine vast terminals echoing with silence, where footsteps replace crowds and time seems to slow. This is not a scene from a movie. This is happening right now in one of the most ambitious aviation projects ever built. Welcome to Al Maktoum International Airport, a place designed to handle over 200 million passengers every single year. A mega airport larger than entire cities, built with a vision to dominate global aviation and redefine how the world connects across continents. But here's the reality. The terminals stand quiet. Gates remain unused. Runways stretch endlessly, yet see only occasional aircraft breaking the silence. Instead of millions of travelers, only a small fraction passes through. A number so low, it feels disconnected from the scale surrounding it. Rows of check-in counters wait without queues. Security lines don't exist. Even the moving walkways feel like they're carrying emptiness instead of people. This was built on a powerful idea. Build first, and demand will follow. A belief that scale itself creates gravity. For years, that philosophy worked. Cities grew, airlines expanded, passengers filled the skies. But something has quietly shifted in the background. Because infrastructure can be perfect, design can be flawless, investment can be unlimited. But none of that guarantees movement. Airports don't live on concrete and steel. They live on flow, of people, of routes, of global momentum. And when that flow slows down, even the biggest structures begin to feel disconnected from their purpose. This is not a failure, not yet. It's something more subtle, a gap between expectation and timing, a future that arrived before the world was ready to meet it. Because building something massive is one challenge, but aligning it with reality, that's a completely different game. And if the airport built for the future feels this quiet, then what about the airport that once ruled the present? Once the unstoppable heartbeat of global aviation, Dubai International Airport still moves millions, but something beneath the surface has started to shift. Even today, it remains one of the busiest airports on Earth. Flights arrive, depart, connect, an endless rhythm that rarely pauses. But pressure is building quietly. There's one problem no amount of money can easily solve: space. DXB has no room left to grow beyond its current limits. Every runway, every terminal, every slot is stretched to near maximum capacity. Expansion is no longer a possibility. It's a constraint written into geography. Airlines compete fiercely for landing slots. Timing becomes everything. Even a small delay can ripple across the entire system like a chain reaction. This is the paradox. An airport that succeeded so much, it now struggles because of that very success. Beyond physical limits, external pressures are rising. Airspace disruptions across the region are forcing airlines to rethink routes and adjust flight paths constantly. Flights that once followed smooth, predictable corridors now face uncertainty. Detours mean more fuel, more time, and more operational complexity. And then comes the invisible cost: insurance. When regional risks increase, airlines pay more just to operate safely within these skies. For some carriers, the equation no longer makes sense. Routes are adjusted, frequencies reduced. In some cases, destinations quietly removed from schedules. What was once a perfectly optimized hub begins to feel pressure from every direction: physical, financial, and geopolitical at the same time. Because DXB isn't just an airport, it's a transit machine, a system built on constant global movement connecting east and west seamlessly. But that model has a weakness. It depends entirely on stability. When global conditions shift, the impact is immediate and unavoidable. When disruption doesn't stay local, it spreads through the network, affecting schedules, connections, and passenger confidence almost instantly. This is what makes DXB different and fragile. Not weak, but highly sensitive to changes beyond its control. An airport that is too full to grow, yet too important to fail. So it adapts, adjusts, absorbs pressure. But the question remains, how long can this balance hold? Because while Dubai recalibrates its position in a changing world, others are not waiting. They are preparing, quietly, strategically. While Dubai adjusts to pressure, a new force is quietly rising in the desert, a project designed not just to compete, but to redefine regional aviation dominance. At the center of this shift stands King Salman International Airport, a massive development backed by billions, built with long-term strategic intent. This is not just another airport. It is a statement. A calculated move to capture traffic flows that once naturally passed through Dubai. Alongside it, Riyadh Air is entering the game with aggressive expansion plans, targeting routes, partnerships, and global connectivity from day one. But the real shift isn't loud. It's happening quietly, through decisions made by airlines, passengers, and markets responding to a changing environment. Because traffic isn't vanishing, it's moving, redirecting itself toward regions offering efficiency, cost stability, and fewer operational uncertainties. Inside the UAE, this redistribution becomes even clearer. Secondary airports are feeling pressure in ways that were once unimaginable. At Sharjah International Airport, The low-cost model faces rising fuel prices and shrinking affordability, making budget travel less predictable than before. Meanwhile, Ras Al Khaimah International Airport depends heavily on tourism flows, making it highly sensitive to seasonal demand and global travel confidence. Further east, Fujairah International Airport operates within a niche, focusing on cargo and limited routes, yet still constrained by scale and market reach. Behind all this lies a deeper economic story. Fuel costs have increased, pushing airlines to rethink routes, frequencies, and even entire operating strategies. At the same time, passenger behavior is evolving. Travelers are becoming more selective, more price-sensitive, and more influenced by external uncertainties than ever before. For airlines, profitability is now a balancing act. Every route must justify itself financially, operationally, and strategically in a far more complex landscape. This creates fragmentation. Instead of one dominant hub, traffic begins spreading across multiple nodes, each capturing a piece of the global flow. So what we're witnessing is not decline, it's redistribution. A slow, strategic reshaping of how aviation networks function across the region. And that leads to a powerful realization. This isn't about empty airports, it's about a changing map. What if we've been asking the wrong question this entire time? Maybe these aren't ghost hubs at all. Maybe they're something far more complex and strategic. Because what looks like emptiness might actually be timing. Infrastructure built ahead of demand, waiting for the world to catch up to it. This is not collapse, it's overcapacity. A deliberate bet on the future, where scale is prepared before the surge of global movement arrives. At the same time, it's repositioning. Airports, airlines, and nations are adjusting strategies to fit a world that no longer behaves like it used to. And beneath it all, these are long-term bets. Projects designed not for today, but for decades of shifting travel patterns and economic cycles. So the real question is no longer about empty terminals. It's about the future structure of global aviation itself. Can mega hubs survive in a world that's becoming increasingly fragmented, where risks, costs, and geopolitics reshape how people and goods move? Or are we entering a new era, where traffic spreads across multiple regions instead of flowing through a few dominant global gateways? For decades, aviation was centralized. A few major hubs controlled the majority of global transit, acting as bridges between continents and economies. But now, that model is being tested. Distributed networks are emerging, offering flexibility, resilience, and alternative pathways in uncertain conditions. In this changing landscape, Dubai still holds power. It remains one of the most important aviation centers in the world today. Airports like Dubai International Airport continue to operate at massive scale, connecting millions across continents every single year. And projects like Al Maktoum International Airport still represent one of the boldest long-term aviation visions ever attempted. But dominance alone is no longer enough. Adaptation has become the defining factor in who leads and who falls behind. Because the forces shaping aviation today, competition, geopolitics, and shifting demand, are stronger, faster, and less predictable than ever before. And no airport, no matter how large, is completely immune to those forces. Airports don't disappear overnight. They evolve, they shift. They adapt to survive in a constantly changing global system. The real question is simple, yet powerful. Who adapts fast enough to stay in the sky? Now it's your turn. Do you think this is just a temporary slowdown or the beginning of a permanent shift in global aviation? Share your thoughts below. Because the future of the skies might depend on how we understand this moment today.